it over to Larry Barber, who is a board member with Open Doors, and he is going to tell us what they have been up to, because I know they've been up to a lot this year. So Larry, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I know I'm talking to the choir here, but what I thought I'd do for those folks who probably aren't familiar with some of the history of Open Doors, I'd start with I'll try to be as brief as possible so I can have a lot of time to answer any questions that I might be able to answer for you. But just know that Open Doors and Habitat for Humanity and the Closed Closet are three continuing missions that our church has grabbed a hold of and kept in the forefront of our ministry and our mission at Trinity. And I'm so thankful to be a member at Trinity and involved, especially in Open Doors as well. Open Doors began in 2007 through the efforts of the Interfaith Association, the Housing Authority, some other local services, and other community leaders. And Held from Trinity, our pastor at that time, was one of the original founders of Open Doors. At that time, the group was called HEARTS, which stood for Harrisonburg and Rockingham Thermal Shelter. It was a low barrier shelter. It's for those folks who were homeless that didn't qualify to be in, say, Salvation Army or Mercy House. And Mercy House was mainly for families. And so it was originally for those folks who were kind of on the fringes that could go nowhere else. In 2007, Hearts then hired an executive director, and we recruited churches to be host homes. So from the very beginning, Open Doors has been pretty much run by the churches and faith communities. Without the faith communities, Open Doors would not exist. When we first started, we had a limit of 20 beds maximum. If you remember, those of you who are around then, Trinity hosted Open Doors every year for a week. And we had the women in the yoke room and the men in the commons area, and we fed them. And the problem then was that many times we had to turn people away because we didn't have enough beds. It was for those homeless folks who are 18 years and older. We couldn't take families. Being a low barrier shelter, there were individuals who had some, criminal pasts and those kinds of things. And then we rotated from church to church. The city of Harrisonburg would only allow us to house the Open Doors for only 1 week, or Hearts at that time for 1 week. Then we had to move to different churches. And we did that for several years. And we ran the shelter from November to March just because of finances and some of those things. And each church had a designated lead volunteer. And originally I was the lead volunteer at Trinity, still am. That and Mary Lou, who's joined us, and of course, Donna. So we have lead volunteers, and to this day, that's still the model, that the churches had lead volunteers in each of the churches that kind of coordinate the churches move to that. And then in 2013, I was on the board then, I still am, but in 2013, we sort of did a revisioning and sort of changed our name and vision from just being a thermal shelter to more of a service-oriented organization. And we changed our name to Open Doors because we wanted to communicate to folks that our door was always open for any and every guest, not just for shelter, but also we had situations where we'd help people find housing. We'd help people fill out forms for jobs. We tried to be more than just a shelter. We've also done some medical screenings and some of those things. So when we moved into this phase of Open Doors, we then decided to increase our numbers from 20 to 40, kind of doubling that. It took a while to get the city of Harrisonburg on board with us with that. But what we pretty much did is went around and talked to some of the larger churches and faith communities in the area that had a large facility that could handle that. So we finally wound up with 14 different churches in the county and the city. We also then in 2013 were able to add some county churches that were large enough. So we had about 14 local churches and 30 faith communities that came on board to help us with that. The larger churches offered us some services that some of the smaller churches couldn't. For instance, shower facilities. Back when we had the 20 number limit, I remember at Trinity, we would take a van and transport people up to the recreation center to shower. That wasn't ideal, had a lot of problems with that in terms of just logistics. So when we went to the 40 bed model, then we were able to offer.
Uh-oh, looks like he may have frozen. Let me shoot him a message.
We would have nursing students come and take the temperature, blood pressure, help residents with their medications. Also, a lot of times we were able to get medications for residents who couldn't get them otherwise. And we had some of the monetary issues where we helped them get their meds and keep their meds. So, and that program still exists. Before that, when we had the original 20 bed person, we had some local physicians and nurse practitioners that would come in once a week and do those same kinds of services. But with the suitcase clinic, it still now exists. We had a little bit better control and we can track our residents better. So the suitcase clinic does that. And then we also added a group called Loads of Love. And what they would do would be come in and get the residents' laundry and take it out to the laundromats, wash it, dry it, bring it back to them the next day. Also, the local jail has always washed and dried our bed linens and blankets and things that we use every week. And then I'll talk about what happened when the pandemic hit in a few minutes, but that was another service that we had. And so then we also expanded our number of weeks that we were in service. We started earlier now in November and go almost to the end of April. So we added weeks to that. And also we involved the police department quite a bit in the early years, as well as now we have a police officer who's on our board of directors. So Open Doors has transitioned quite a bit from those early 20 bed days to what it is now. But the key still remains for us are our faith communities. Our faith communities provide us with all of the meals, both breakfast and supper. Without that, there's no way we could exist without the local communities. Some of our early sources of revenue, just to give you a little background here, early on the housing authority pretty much kept us going with their funding. Also our different faith communities, Trinity's one that donates yearly to Open Doors. Then we did a campaign where in our individual community members give. We sent out a mailing in November. We finally talked to the city of Harrisonburg. They budgeted $14,000 a year for several years. We also applied for the CBDG grants, which are local flow through monies. And we get about $6,000 to that to pay basically for supplies. And we make application every year to United Way, and in past we've had between $2,000 and $3,000 for them. And then we got the NAP tax credits from the state, which helped individuals who wanted to donate. We would get between $6,000 and $7,000 from them. But the big thing that we hit upon about 4 or 5 years ago was the Food Truck Fest. And the Food Truck Fest sort of was our, I guess you could say, golden goose, where we would get between $35,000 and $40,000 a year. It's sort of, we were sort of in dire straits before we hit upon the Food Truck Fest. And then, as you well know, in the pandemic last year, it didn't happen. And like I say, I'll get to that in a minute. And then we also started participating in a great community give. Our first time or two with that, we'd get $5,000 or $6,000. Well, last year, even with the pandemic, for the first time, we raised $18,000 on that one day, which certainly came in handy. So fast forward to 2020, which, as we all know, has been just one of those years. So right around April, right around first part of March, when we had the big lockdown, we lost our executive director right in the middle of that. She resigned, and we had to try to find a new executive director, right, I say, in the middle of the pandemic. So in addition to losing our food truck festival, most of the churches were in lockdown and couldn't host us. So we were kind of at a loss as, oh no, now what are we going to do? So we didn't have a place to go or where to be. And then through, I call it divine intervention and a lot of hard negotiating, JMU stepped up to the plate big time and offered us Godwin Hall. And the city of Harrisonburg provided some funding for that too. Godwin Hall was a godsend to us because everything was right there. We could do the laundry there because at that time when the lockdown hit, the jail stopped providing services to us for laundry. So if it had not been for JMU and the city of Harrisonburg, I really and truly don't know what we would have done. They really stepped up big time. So right in the middle of that, when we were looking to where to go and what to do, we lost our executive director. And at that time, we had to hire a new person right in the middle of a pandemic. And that I'll talk about in a minute was a big challenge. But there's some really top-notch organizations that really need to be recognized during that pandemic. One was the City of Harrisonburg and JMU and the Community Foundation with their grant program. We were able to get about $24,000 from them. And our own Trinity's Myrtle Project gave us $5,000, which came in handy right at the right time. And the Housing Authority stepped up and gave us between $25,000 and $30,000. And then a lot of people in our community, tons of people from JMU and volunteers stepped up, worked at Godwin Hall. And I would go by there and there'd be tons and tons of supplies at the front door. Every time we sent out a call for supplies, I'd go by and there were tons of supplies there. So our community stepped up and continues to do so. So as I say, right in the middle of the pandemic, we had to hire a new executive director. And for some reason, I'm always on a personnel committee. I don't know how I'm going to get out of that, but I was on the personnel committee that was looking for a new executive director. And we hired a young man by the name of Joel Ballou. He and his wife came up from Pennsylvania, and they ran a church camp much like Massanet Springs. And we hired Joel right in the middle of this pandemic. And so it gave him some time to kind of get his feet on the ground. He was able to see what was going on at Godwin Hall. But lo and behold, one day I was talking to Jeff Carr. He came down to visit, and he asked me about Open Doors. And I said, Jeff, we just hired a guy. His name is Joel Ballou. And Jeff started laughing, and I asked him what was so funny. He said Joel was his roommate at Bridgewater College when he was at Bridgewater College. And he and Wendy are good friends with Joel and his wife. And Joel is an ordained minister in the Brethren Church. So I think God led Joel to us because he is a terrific, terrific person. And he has done great, great things. So after the shelter ended at Godwin Hall, we were trying to find out, well, where are we going to go? What are we going to do come the fall? We had looked at several places. Rent was so expensive. Things just didn't happen. We wanted to kind of start early. So lo and behold, we were able, through some funding from the city and some grants from the CARES Project, we were able to go up to Camp Brethren Woods. It so happens that Joel's wife is a director of Camp Brethren Woods. So we were able to go up there until November the 2nd. So all of these things are kind of falling into place. And right as it was beginning to end, we got lucky and started working with the Garber family, and we moved into the Red Front. And we have Red Front from now until the end of April. I was there Friday. It's a 33,000 square foot building. Underneath is again another 33,000. So what has happened through the CARES money, we were able at Redfront to buy 2 refrigerators. They do not have showers there. They do not have stoves there. So right now they just have 2 refrigerators, a prep sink, lots of storage. But we can be there until November. So what Open Doors is doing is now sending out information to the various churches to kind of do what we've done to provide in the past, which is to provide the meals. And we usually do a week in February with Massanutten Pres. I've been in touch with them. We're going to try to get together and see how that's going to look and how that's going to work. I do know as of right now, we are scheduled for sometime mid or late February, but I'll get back in touch with you, more about that. And then quickly before I turn it over to questions, we have had some future plans that I'd like to share with you right now. Is that our board of directors, when Joel came on board, we had a retreat and took a leap of faith and decided because of COVID, things are never going to be the same again in terms of having us go into the individual churches. I don't think that's going to be feasible. So what we're trying to do is we're now looking for land to build our own structure, or if we can find a structure that meets our needs, to renovate it. And we want to try to eventually move to a year-round shelter. But our basic issues are land. And then if we can find the land, then we've got to do a huge capital campaign to try to build a facility for us. We've never wanted to go that direction, but circumstances have caused us to realize that we have to go that direction. And there'll be a lot of planning down the road. We've got about 6 to 8 months where we can we've got some things in the works, but there's nothing, solidified at this point. So through the leap of faith, that's kind of where we're headed and what we're thinking about. And the city, like I say, it's just been very, very cooperative with us. And so we're counting on them. So that's a real quick synopsis as I can make it. So Mary, I'll entertain any questions anybody might have. But again, I'm so proud of our faith communities, especially Trinity, for the Merle grant and the years we have always stepped up to the plate at Trinity. And every time I've asked for anything, you guys have just provided it. And I just want to thank all of you personally for that.
Thank you, Larry. Does anybody have any questions? Raise your hand, either virtually or visibly, and I'll call on you. Just don't forget to unmute yourself. I actually have a question, Larry. In looking at coming up with a more permanent location, is there any thought as to whether or not you're going to try to build in additional capacity?
Yes, that's right now we're up to 45 beds in at Redfront. We had 40 before, but we can handle 45. The fire marshal came in and had to do his thing. And once that got approved, so we're set up for 45. Our plan is, with some CARES money, is to buy a couple of commercial washers and dryers, because the jail stopped doing our laundry, but they agreed starting Monday. They've agreed to start doing our laundry again through this season. But after that, who knows? So we're going to buy a commercial washer and dryer. And we're also looking at possibly putting in some showers there at Redfront. A couple of the organizations in town, the Disaster Relief from Mennonite and also Brethren Church is we're going to try to come in and see if they can plumb in a couple of showers there while we're there.
Nice.
But yeah, that if we build, or if and when we build rather, we will have the capacity. If it's in the city, we'd have to figure out what the fire marshal will allow us to have. 40 to 50 beds, I would think, would be max at this point.
Excellent.
So we're still looking.
Judy, you have a question?
Yes. What determined the timeline through April at Redfront?
Let me say that again. What
determined the timeline that they said from now until April? What happens in April?
Well, money, first of all, and then the Garbers being kind enough to allow us to use that facility through April, because he can't sell it as long as we're in it. So the point is I think he realized that it's better to get some money out of it than to just let it sit empty. So it's not cheap, but I think through the CARES money, and then it dries up in December unless, you know, I don't know how to say this politely, but our do nothing Congress or Senate to get together and do another round of money to organizations. We just have to wait and see what happens at that point.
Excellent. Thank you, Judy. Yes, John.
Well, I believe there are still some stores around the city where the business has gone under. I forget exactly where they are. Mm-hmm. But I think there's still some storefronts around.
Yes, we have looked at several of those, and a lot of the issues have to do with square footage to socially distance properly. That's one issue for us. And the other issue is the cost of renovation would be far greater than if you built your own facility. But we're still looking. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But there's just some crazy issues out there with land and who owns it and where you locate a shelter. You still have that attitude of not in my backyard. When it comes to putting in a permanent homeless shelter, we've run into that already. When we thought we had a really nice place that we could do something with, it sort of like, you meet all the requirements of the code and the zoning. However, the neighbors is kind of like, no, not in my backyard. So we're running into that.
Yeah.
Donna.
Yes. I was two questions. One, you said there's no shower facility there now. So what are they doing for that? And then maybe if we could discuss, some ways that our congregation could help safely. Because when we look at our congregation, a lot of us fall in that high risk category in terms of age. So if we could talk a little bit about, well, first of all, where are they currently showering?
I think the Asbury United Methodist Church, the folks hang out there a lot. I think Asbury is allowing them to come in and shower at Asbury currently. So that takes care of that part. Now, again, who knows what the pandemic's going to be like come February. I don't know if we're going to be shut down or not in terms of, us. And when I say us, I don't mean open doors. I'm talking about all of us, whether we can go travel anywhere or do anything. But what we're going to try to do is meet with Massanutten and Perez and try to get with them to kind of work out a schedule of how we do this. It's obvious without ovens that most of the things that we would make would have to be in crock pots or heated up and put in insulated containers and take them over there. And then for breakfast, it's sort of a grab and go thing. I was there yesterday and I saw the bags that the folks had made up. It was like a juice box, an orange, granola bar, a pack of dry cereal, that sort of thing. So that in the mornings, they just grab it and go. So the churches could do, a week's worth of grab and go breakfasts or, do 1 or 2 nights a week for meals. Or I think that the possibilities are endless. Now they do have, where the guests are served, there is a shield up that it's only like about 2 feet from the top of the serving to where the shield comes in. The shield goes all the way up. So if you're serving, you're behind a shield. So there's no contact between you and the guest. So they just come through the line, get their meal, and go sit down. I did get a chance to talk to them about cleanup afterwards and masks. But what happens is every night the suitcase clinic takes the temperature of every single guest and does the protocol for every individual that comes in to the shelter. So everybody's checked, whether you're a guest or whether you're a worker or whatever. So the suitcase clinic checks everyone every night. And then if there's someone that might have a fever, they're isolated. So we've got 33,000 square feet, so we can isolate people very easily.
Excellent. Steve Reinhardt, you had a question, and then Lauren Stroderman.
I was wondering about the transportation issue. If you're still doing some like busing to the current facility and how that influences looking for the, a future site after April.
Yeah, right now, folks either walk there or we have bus tickets that we've always had through the transportation department of City of Harrisonburg. We buy a pack of bus tickets and we give any resident or any guest rather that wants a bus ticket. We give them a bus ticket. So say if they're on the other end of town and can't walk all the way to Redfront, they can use the bus ticket to get there. And that will remain the same wherever we are. Wherever our shelter finally winds up being permanently, we'll have to use some kind of a bus ticket through the City of Harrisonburg's transportation. So that won't ever go away. So when people donate money for bus tickets or anything like that, that'll be great. And one of the things we're going to do too with Advent, we're going to put up a reverse Advent calendar, and we're going to give that to everyone. And it's going to have on there, one of the ideas is every day you donate an item and put it in the box. And on the 24th of December, you take it to Open Doors. Mm-hmm. And in there are things like box of Q-tips, shampoo, deodorant, those kinds of things. So you would just take that box to them, and then that would be all of those kinds of supplies that are always constantly needed. So there are opportunities during Advent to do some of those things. But I'll try to communicate to you folks after we meet with Massanutten about the meal situation and how that's going to work. But again, come February, we just don't know what that situation is going to be like. As far as transportation, to answer your question quickly, Steve, is that, yeah, we'll still use the bus services.
Excellent. Lauren, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm sure that from your discussion, I'm sure that it was approached, but would the Garbers be willing to sell the building, and would they be willing to count the rent that's being paid now toward the price of the sale? Is it something that I'm sure the city would have already said, do you want to sell the building to us?
Yeah. I'm not sure how far we've gotten in that discussion with them other than through April. I'm sure between now and then that will be a discussion, but I just don't know how much they would be asking for that building. That it may be way out of our price range. I'm really not sure. But yeah, they have been so great to work with. They could get twice the rent out of that building that we're paying them. But it's just a godsend that we're there through April. It gives us a little breathing room to check out these other things. But that will probably be one area. I mean, we talked about that before, was to wonder if that would be a place for a shelter. It would take a lot of renovation, but at the same time, it's already zoned properly and got, water and sewer there. It's just a matter of what you need to put in it to make it work.
That way they wouldn't have to worry about selling it. They'd have a buyer, and I'm sure it would be less expensive than building from scratch, right?
Yeah.
It's a great
it's 33,000 square feet. Well, you've been in Redfront, 33,000 square feet. And then right underneath that is the basement's got at least 33,000 square feet. So it's huge. I mean, it is. And then heating it and air conditioning it would be an issue too. So we definitely will look into it, I'm sure.
Excellent. Yes, Mr. Newman, go ahead.
Larry, I wonder if you'd considered using one of the inactive food trucks for food service.
We haven't talked about that. We have to get with the food truck people who use it or own it. That might be a real. I'll write that down. That's a great idea. I might check that out in case. Now I knew one time there was a food truck that would come to Otterbein United Methodist Church. There was a food truck that would come there one night and serve meals from there. They could just come up, order what they wanted. Let me write that down. That might be a possibility of a food truck being used for food service for sure. That's a great idea.
Excellent. Lauren, you have another question?
Yeah, when is Trinity's week or weeks?
I'm sorry.
When is Trinity host?
Tentatively, I'll say this tentatively because it's what, let me look at my calendar here. It's the week of February 15th through the 21st. That's Monday to Sunday. February 15th through the 21st is what Massanutten went ahead and reserved that week. And then emailed me and said, would you like to join us during this week? And so, you know, we'll definitely have to get with them and meet with them, but that's the week right now, the 15th through the 21st.
And that's our only week?
That's the only week they've signed up for so far that I'm aware of.
Well, let us know.
I will. I absolutely will. Like I say, who knows what's going to happen with this pandemic by February, but we still have to feed, you know, our homeless guests. So it's a matter of how we, like a church, can plug into it. So there's one thing I did want to mention. We have 2 staff people that spend the night there at the shelter. So the church only has to provide the meals. We don't have to have overnight people stay or any of that. So it's just a matter of coming and providing the meal and clean up, and then that's it. So we don't have that issue to worry about this time. We have staff members. So we have Joel, who's our full-time executive director. And then we have Ashley Robinson, who is our shelter director. That's not a new position. We've always had that position, but it's a full-time paid position now. And what we're hoping to do, if all works out, is to hire a social worker who would come in. Right now, we have caseworkers that we're sharing with OCP and Mercy House through the end of December. So we have social workers who are working with some of our guests. And the other thing I failed to mention is as of this summer, we have placed about 20 homeless folks in some type of housing. So it's been about 20 people we have gotten some housing for. So,
Excellent.
Which is really good.
Just so you know, go ahead.
I said you're doing good work. Thanks, Larry.
Well, I tell you, it's the faith communities and all the volunteers in our community. We're just so lucky to live in such a giving and wonderful town. Man, if I were in the city of Harrisonburg, I'd just be jumping up and down right now, because these city of Harrisonburg has really saved us. They've saved Open Doors. Plus, we have a good relationship, I think, with the city, and we've nurtured that relationship. And so I think it's a two-way street, because we're providing the service for them
Definitely
that they can't provide, and they want to give us the money to do it. They want us to go. The city wants us to go year round. They really do. And the police department in the city wants us to go year round. We've gotten that message loud and clear. And so they're willing to step up and help us and do those things. So I'm just really thrilled that we live in the Harrisonburg. It's a great place to be.
I would agree. Any more questions? comments? Larry, on the chat feed, Will Elliott said, thank you for presenting. Judy said, sorry to leave the great discussion. And Ann Held said, thank you, Larry, for all you do for Open Doors.
Oh, well, it's me and thousands of other people, thousands of other families, and every member at Trinity that's contributed over the last 13 years or so. It's just it's a church-wide mission, and I'm just happy to be a little bit of a part of that. So I'll keep in touch with everybody about our week in February and how that's going to look for us. But yeah, Donna's right. I think that the part's going to be with our population, how we can, get the meals there and do some of those things. So logistical part will be a challenge, but I feel assured we can do it. It's just how we do it in the safest possible way.
Excellent. Louisa, did you have a question?
I had a comment.
Louisa, you're on mute.
All right, sorry.
No, you're good.
Thank you so much for all that you have done through the years to grow this program within Trinity. And thank you for staying with it.
Oh, well, it's obviously a passion of mine, and it's a great need in our community. And, I couldn't do it if Trinity wasn't there, giving 100% behind it either. So it's a good partnership. And now just to let you know, these are statistics that I just share real quickly with you. Last year, we had over 52 different volunteer groups that helped Open Doors. We had over 1,400 shelter volunteers that helped. We had over 13,000 volunteer hours, and we provided 13,696 meals last year. Mm-hmm. So that gives you a kind of a breadth and depth of how big it is. We served 17 veterans, 49 people with disabilities, and 37 people who were listed as chronically homeless. So we had 183 unique individuals, which means different people over the course of the season. And we averaged 44 people a night, which we have a capacity of only 40. So we slipped a few in and nobody knows.
La, 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 la.
Yeah, I know.
Sanders, did you have a question? Bill Sanders?
No question. Okay. Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, John.
I was thinking, we actually had a retreat several years ago, and sort of outcome of one of our Kara nurtures, and we worked through a book, Bringers of Hope, I think it was the name of, and she talked about organizations that really try to help people get out of their situation and into better situations rather than just being in an organization. She talked about some of the efforts, like way back in the 60s and 70s, actually made the problems worse, and really helping people to move from their situation into a situation where their situation was better.
We partner pretty well with Mercy House and OCP. We provide services for one another and kind of gotten through this pandemic with the CARES money with those three organizations that really kind of cooperate together. We also found out that 83% of our homeless guests are from the Shenandoah Valley. So we do have some people that pass through that aren't from the Valley, but most of our people are from the Valley. Again, our goal is to have people come in and hopefully get out as quickly as possible. It's not a year-round thing for them to come in November and stay through April. The idea is it's a short-term shelter to where they can move in and move out. And again, so we're trying to get services so people can move on. And so people can get their lives picked up. Our fear, and we talked about this Friday at our board meeting, our fear is we're going to see a lot more people wanting shelter come January, because the money runs out unless the government does something for some additional funds. People are going to be evicted. People are going to lose jobs and lose your, unemployment benefits, and the need's just going to go through the roof. So we're just kind of holding on until January to find out what's going to happen. So just keep your prayers coming, and like I said, we've been in the newspaper a lot and on TV a lot, but it's just to try to inform people of the situation and what the needs are. That's the main reason we're trying to do that. So.
I'm there.
Excellent. Okay.
And it just occurred to me, they were talking on Today's show just this morning. There was an organization that, I forget what the name of the organization is, but it was started by a veteran.
Yeah.
Who they go to places that are experiencing trauma, the earthquakes, the hurricanes, and all this stuff. They go in and they help people get back on their feet and stuff.
Right.
I forget what the name of the organization is. It'd probably be on the NBC website.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments for Larry? Just about out of time here.
Thank you, Mary, for coordinating this. I appreciate that.
No, you're quite welcome. Thank you for sharing that with us in the group. Next week is our last week for Nurture Time with the Harvest. We're going to have the Beers talking to us about their program in Haiti, Resources to Resources. You will be greeted by Ellie once you come off of services, because I'm actually going to be part of services next week.
Oh,
so you will see either me or Ellie then. If that's all, have a wonderful week, everybody. Hope to see you next Sunday.
Thank you.